Havana in the 1950s stood at the threshold of becoming one of the great global capitals of the 20th century. It combined European elegance, American modernity, and Afro-Caribbean creativity in a way unmatched anywhere in the hemisphere. Its architecture rivaled Barcelona and Paris, neoclassical palaces in Miramar, Florentine mansions in Country Club, and Art Deco masterpieces along El Prado and the Malecón. In El Vedado and Cubana, the residences recalled Beverly Hills and Palm Beach, but with a uniquely Cuban sense of proportion and grace. Havana's boulevards evoked Europe's grand promenades, while its theaters and department stores rivaled those of New York. The crown jewel was El Encanto, Latin America's most glamorous department store, where Christian Dior premiered his haute couture line in 1950 before debuting it in the United States, recognizing that Cuban women embodied elegance like no other. Cuba's economy was among the strongest in Latin America. The peso was equal to the US dollar, and prosperity was everywhere. In 1954, more Cadillacs were sold in Havana than in New York City, proof of consumer power. Cuban industry was diverse and expanding. Sugar exports and ethanol potential foreshadowed global energy leadership. Bacardi was already an international brand headquartered in Havana, and nickel refining provided strategic resources. Cubana Airlines was a founding member of IATA and one of the first to fly jets. Havana was a hub for innovation and finance. Entrepreneurs like Roberto Goizueta, later CEO of Coca-Cola, and the Cuban stepfather of Jeff Bezos, reflected a culture of ambition and ingenuity. Cuba's orientation was distinct. It looked to the Atlantic West. Unlike other Latin nations, Cubans saw themselves as tied to the United States, Canada, and Europe. In the 1950s, more Americans lived in Cuba than Cubans in the U.S. Marriages between Cubans and Americans were cherished, celebrated in popular culture through I Love Lucy. Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball reflected a genuine affection between Cuban and American identity. Hollywood echoed this romance in films like Weekend in Havana, presenting the island as glamorous, cosmopolitan, and irresistibly modern. Cultural life sparkled. Havana boasted more newspapers and radio stations per capita than almost any city worldwide. Latin America's first television station began broadcasting there in 1950, soon followed by color broadcasts and experimental live relays from New York. Movie theaters thrived, and with Desi Arnaz and Desilu tied to Hollywood, Havana seemed poised to become a second Los Angeles for Spanish-language film. Musically, Cuba had already conquered the world. Perez Prado's mambo, the cha-cha-cha, Benny Moré's boleros, and Afro-Cuban jazz defined an international sound. Celia Cruz, the nation's most beloved female star, proved that Afro-Cuban artistry was at the heart of Cuba's cultural power. Racial harmony gave Cuba another unique dimension. While exclusive clubs existed, segregation was never institutionalized, and there were no race riots. Most Cubans of European descent had Spanish or Canary Island roots, often with Mediterranean coloring and striking green or blue eyes, while Afro-Cubans were integrated, educated, and proud to identify as Cuban first. By the late 1950s, Havana was compared to Monaco. The world's richest kept homes there, just as they do in Miami today. Havana's carnivals rivaled Rio and New Orleans. Women were emancipated and active in every field, from academia to the arts. The island attracted immigrants from Italy, Spain, Eastern Europe, and the United States. It was called the Mediterranean Riviera of the New World. Had this trajectory continued, Havana by 2025 would have been extraordinary. A global city wealthier per capita than Spain or Italy, with palaces preserved beside modern skyscrapers, Dior fashion shows at El Encanto, Bacardi a world leader, Cubana Airlines a Caribbean hub, and a thriving film and television industry tied to Hollywood and New York. Embassies would have had waiting lists of Europeans eager to immigrate. Havana would not merely resemble Miami, but surpass it. A Barcelona-New York hybrid, a crown jewel of the Americas, only 90 miles from Florida. Sadly, that all ended in 1959. Please like and subscribe.